All right, everybody, welcome to Off the Grid podcast. We're here at the GridWorks in Midtown Phoenix. This is a co-work space, and one of our neighbors in our co-work space has been Bill Saul. He's our guest today. I'm going to introduce him in a second. And he has been our neighbor in the co-work space since we launched Neighborhood Ventures 4 years ago. So we've been excited to get him on our podcast, and I'll tell you a bit more about his background in a minute. This is Jameson Manwaring. I'm the co-founder of Neighborhood Ventures, and also have Grayson Loupas with us. And Grayson, we're going to give you a little elevator pitch opportunity. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
My name is Grayson Loupas. I am a 19-year-old college student at Grand Canyon University here in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm a licensed realtor in Washington, but I'm no longer pursuing that career, and I'm working for Jameson here. I just started working for him recently.
Yeah, so we...
Aspiring entrepreneur, also.
Yes, and Grayson has helped us to launch this podcast. The great thing about this podcast is we're going to be interviewing business leaders, entrepreneurs, mentors in the space, mostly from the Phoenix area. But obviously the lessons that we can draw from these people will help all of us. And we're excited to really get this podcast going. And I want to talk a little bit about our guest today, Bill Saul. So Bill is a partner and managing director with ApexOne. ApexOne is an apartment fund, and he'll tell you a little bit more about that. Bill works in business development, capital markets, and investor relations. He has over 40 years of real estate experience with prior positions at Colliers, Hendricks & Partners, Trammell Crow Residential, and Granada Construction. 40 years, that's twice as many years as Grayson's been alive.
More than twice.
When he was at Colliers, Bill led the brokerage and sales division and introduced new innovative business disciplines that are still being used today. During his time at Trammell Crow, JPI, and Granada, he was directly responsible for the development of over 9,000 multifamily units. And then prior to joining ApexOne, Bill was identifying distressed opportunities after the 2007 recession, and led the way for $100 million of acquisition of $100 million of commercial notes. So he has a real extensive background in this space, and there are a lot of people online doing podcasts that have actually never done anything. And so we love to have somebody who's actually done the work, has seen the business from many different aspects, including development, and which is probably one of the hardest parts of real estate and construction. And then just also to mention, Bill does a lot in our community here in Phoenix. A lot of people know this guy. They know him because he's been an impactful guy, an influential guy here for a long time. And when we first launched Neighborhood Ventures, John introduced me to Bill, and he's been one of our most important mentors. So I think he does that for a lot of people. And then one thing I also noticed, you played college football.
What? I didn't even know that.
And William and Mary. And you graduated from ASU in engineering. So with that long introduction, Bill, thank you for joining us.
That's quite the intro.
Well, thanks for the intro. There's a lot of things that happen in your life when you're doing, doesn't matter what that happens to be from a development standpoint or educational standpoint. I think the lesson we all need to take away from it is many times we don't believe we've accomplished a lot. And I think the hardest lesson every one of us has to learn is that we have to declare victory on the things that we accomplish. And it's really difficult because you think everyone else can do it, or that you could train monkeys to do what we do. It's probably not that simple. But the fact is that we're all blessed to have that kind of talent. I think surrounding yourself with people who are really experienced and capable, and realizing that you don't have enough time in your life to learn all the lessons, either painful or good, So try to learn from people who have the experience, and that's really the key element to
Yeah,
us.
what a great way to kick off the discussion, because as I was kind of mentioning earlier, a lot of the young folks trying to get in the business, and the way that the internet kind of provides this facade that you don't have to have experience doing anything, you can just kind of talk about it. And then when reality hits and you start actually trying to do things, it's actually always harder to do those things in real world
100%.
than in your head.
Yeah.
So that's a great point. But I also love what you said about looking back and acknowledging kind of where you've come from and everything you did, and you're still going. That's the thing is you've done multiple things, and you've had some bumps in the road for the last couple of years from a health standpoint, and here you are still grinding it out every day with the rest of us, that are still trying to get there. So really,
I think the thing about that really is, and I just had this mentioned to me by Doug, oddly enough. He said, I don't understand how you can be upbeat based on what happened the last 2 years. And I said, what you don't understand is I should have died twice.
Mm.
And so my mind goes directly to the spot of, I'm just blessed to be here. And my mission is to figure out how to pay it forward and be a part of people's lives who want to get better at what they do. My grandmother was the major influence in my life. And so as a child, she gave me all kinds of crazy lessons that, they all sound kind of corny when you hear them until you live them. And then you go, wow, that really does apply.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that she would say to me is, and I'll ask Grayson this, what's the largest room in your house?
The living room.
Jameson?
Yeah, living room, kitchen, living
She
room.
would tell you is the room for improvement. And so when I heard her say it, I went, come on, Grandma.
Wait, what do you mean the room for improvement?
Oh.
That means you have the ability to constantly improve whatever you're doing to get better. And I think our world is based on the fact of everybody believes if you accomplish something, no matter how you do it, it is good. And therefore it's acceptable. Well, good is only kind of mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
And we've allowed ourselves to dummy ourselves down to thinking good is good, and it's not. So we, as people in the industry, have to work on always identifying the delta that creates the great. And if you work on the delta and constantly work towards that, that good will become great or become better than it would have been normally. And so the successes will happen. It isn't that it's not going to have pain and difficult moments or challenges. Again, a grandmother line that was a great one was, pain is inevitable in our life. Suffering is optional.
Yeah.
So we can do one or the other. And those who have a tendency to lean towards the negative and see everything as a bad thing that's happening is really hard to overcome. So you have to work towards constantly believing that you're going to get better. Go to the people who are smarter than you. Believe that there are people who are younger than you that know something you don't, and be open to that reception. I know I stumble around the office every now and then, and I even did it with Grayson the other day. And technically, it'd be something with a computer. That's not my world. I don't live in it. I'm going to touch it, feel it, see it. I'm going to be with you, talk to you. If you think I'm going to text you to death or I'm going to give you an email that's going to blow your mind, it's not going to happen. But I still can perform. So, and that's really important to me.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm curious. I know you played football. I want to hear about that a little bit. But you also said he said in your intro that you were an engineer major. So I'm curious how you got from engineering to real estate. Did you start with some sort of engineering career?
Oh, yeah. The whole story, and I'll try to make it as short as I can, is I was playing football in college. My head coach at the time was Lou Holtz, who's today pretty famous, wasn't back then. But I injured my shoulder and my neck pretty badly, and so I was on a full scholarship. My family was we were fairly poor, and it was the only way I was going to be in school. But because of the injury, it was really better for me not to play. I went home, my mother, the day I walked in the door, was diagnosed with cancer. 4 months later, she died. And what she said to me was, the only thing I'm asking you to do is get education. Make that promise to me that you'll do it. So when she passed away, I ended up buying a one-way airplane ticket to Arizona because a friend of mine lived here. Got off the plane, and I got a job as a room service waiter in a Bellman because I didn't have enough money to buy a round-trip ticket. I only bought a one-way ticket. Mm-hmm. And as I was working there, someone offered me a job saying, if you get a construction engineering degree, I'll guarantee you a job. I had no guarantees. So I don't know what made me do this, but it's a good lesson for all of us in the business and the industry we're in today. I said, would you put that in writing?
Wow.
And he did. So, you know, in my naivety, I walked over to the university. I went up to the dean of the construction engineering department, which at the time was the #1 engineering school in the country. And I handed it to him. I said, I'm going to be working for this company as soon as I graduate. And he said, well, that's really nice, son, but you're not even in school yet. I said, well, can any village idiot get through this place? And he goes, bad answer there, buddy. So anyways, I ended up getting my engineering degree. But going back to the football question, I was an outside linebacker, and I just sustained an injury to my neck that was significant at the time. And I believed it to be divine interruption. I was supposed to be home so that I could be there when my mother passed. So for me, it was a very positive thing. It wasn't a negative thing.
Why'd you choose Arizona? You said you had a friend out here. Was that basically
from the time I was in first grade? This guy was my best friend, and in 9th grade, his family moved to Arizona, and he came back to my mother's service when she passed, and he said, "You really need a break. You should come to Arizona." I went, really? So bizarrely enough, it'll be 49 years, February 2nd. That I came here. I bought a one-way airplane ticket. It was 16 inches of snow, 6-degree temperatures in Pennsylvania, where I grew up.
Here, what?
I got on the plane. I landed, so just about this time of the year, looking at the palm trees swaying, and I went, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "Why did I not know about this place?"
Right.
Now, I was only going to work long enough to get enough money to fly home, but all the other things fell in place. So I remained here, got my degree from Arizona State. When I graduated, it was just ideal timing. I ended up with 28 job offers all over the world, Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, Hawaii, just multiple places to go to school.
For what kind of engineering?
Construction engineering.
Okay.
And so I went to work for the Del Webb Corporation, was working on casinos and high rises and wastewater treatment plants and things that nobody would ever want to build. I shouldn't say that, but that's the way I felt about it. And one day I was watching two guys who I knew pretty well. I was building a casino up in Lake Tahoe in Reno. And they were walking the building that I was working on to build, which was the Sahara Tahoe Reno Hotel and Casino. And I knew that they were probably going to be selling it. So I said, "What are you guys doing?" They said, "We're selling this building." I said, "Awesome. I mean, how do you get paid for that?" He said, "Well, there's a commission with it." I said, "How much do you get paid?" I'm not asking you, but kinda range. He says, "About 2 to 3%. I said, "Well, what do you think you're going to sell it for?" He says, "Around $30 million. And at the time, that today would be about $350 million.
Wow.
So it was a big deal. Yeah. And I said, "So you're going to get paid $600,000 to sell this building?" At the time, I was working 80 hours a week, and I made more money waiting tables than I did as an engineer. So the next day, I went in and resigned and started in real estate.
As a commercial agent, or?
Yeah, it was I had got my license. I started to work on deals, but the thing that I enjoyed the most and have enjoyed the most in my career was either teaching and coaching people in the industry or building. So the building was really I know why people are farmers. They put something in the ground, they watch it come out of the ground, they harvest it, they earn a living, and they do all these things. And it's really a spectacular way to do things. Guys who build things are the same way. They're planting it in the ground, they watch it come out of the ground. Now, whether it's successful or not, it's yet to be seen. Sometimes the market doesn't allow that to happen. But it's a really rewarding career path, in my opinion.
What was your first building experience? The kind of your entry
Well, I worked for Granada Construction, who at the time was all they built were 1-bedroom, 2-pipe chiller system. So utilities were included, totally furnished. And
apartments.
And I looked at them and said, who would live in one of these things? Because I mean, the average square footage was like 500 or 600 square feet. Well, it was people who needed to know exactly how much they could spend. They didn't need a utility bill that was going to hurt them. They didn't have furniture. Many of them didn't have telephones. So at the time, there weren't cell phones. So the payphones at the complexes would be overloaded with coins because that's what everyone used in the complex. It was a really amazing to watch it happen. And it filled a void in the marketplace that was really unique. So I saw it being beneficial to people. So for me, it was real positive. I thought, here I'm building something that's going to get me paid. With any luck, I'll make money on other things out of it. But really, it was the benefit of what I should do to other people.
Oh.
So it was great.
And then did you do most of your building with Granada?
Just a couple thousand units with them. I was with the Trammell Crow Company. Was responsible for site selections and construction. I was the area manager partner for JPI Development, which was out of Dallas, Texas. If you're familiar with Central and Indian School, that project was mine. The one at Indian School on 7th Street or 4th Street. We built about 2,000 units, and but we were a new product type. It was 3 stories of parking over podium parking, which was not done in the marketplace at the time. But the market imploded. And so although these were big projects and very, good deals, they weren't economically as good as they should have been.
When was that?
2000, 2001.
Oh, okay.
So it was because you were building these giant apartment buildings with 3-story parking garages, is that what you said?
No, three stories of buildings with 2 stories of parking. Excuse me.
Adjacent to the building. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we actually, if you look at the one on Central Avenue, there's a parking structure is totally separate. So they have longitudinal breezeways that you walk to the building through the parking. Yeah. Which was kind of a pioneering experience.
So you've seen, you said you'd been here 40, how many years?
49.
So you've been here 49 years. So you've seen Phoenix.
When I came here, Phoenix, I think, was 500,000 people, and it's today 3.5 million or whatever it is.
Wow. Jeez.
And so I watched enormous growth. If you go down, I used to go down into Chandler as an example. I think when I first moved here, and I may have the wrong statistic, but I want to say that Chandler's population was somewhere between 14 and 20,000 people. Today it's 300,000.
Yeah.
The roads that you got there on were dirt.
Not the 101?
No. Matter of fact, the 101, I don't even know what year that came in. The 51 came in 93. And I remember driving on that for the very first time, and there was not a car on it because no one knew it existed, nor did they know where it went. And I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be the greatest traffic find of all time.
So you're driving on the side streets, and you say it's a dirt road to Chandler.
There was dirt roads all throughout the farming community. So I think Gilbert was 5,000 people at the time. Today it's 250,000. Oh, yeah. So when you look at what Phoenix has done from a growth perspective, Phoenix has been just incredible explosions. Gilbert is, I think, almost 300,000 people today. Yeah. Mesa's 350,000 or whatever that number is. So when you look at the outlying cities in the metroplex of Phoenix, those cities are all in the top 25 cities in the country. And we used to think that they were just little podunk little places. Well, they're not anymore.
Right.
So Phoenix has been a thriving city. It's now the 5th largest city in the United States. Yeah. So there's a lot of great things about that.
And people who live here tend to be from elsewhere.
Correct.
There's not that many people who've actually seen all those cycles. I remember sitting on the plane with a lady who had been here for about that same amount of time, and she said that one thing that she doesn't like about the growth was the skies used to be very clear across the downtown area. And now I think she lived in Scottsdale, and when you look when you come over like the Papago Mountains now, there's some smog there. There's some pollution.
I just watched that video you sent about the manufacturing plants that are all coming in, and that guy who'd been here for a long time talking about how foggy it looks now, just because there's so much pollution being created. But it comes with like growth, I guess, kind of like most major cities. But
it's not all perfect, and I think that we're going to be better about it than other cities, with electric cars that are coming in. But you've seen an area like this that changes so quick. Where I grew up in Idaho, it doesn't change that much. But Phoenix has been such a dynamic area. You've seen.
I mean, I went back to my hometown in Christmas this year in Pennsylvania, and I will tell you, there's not been one house built that I know of in the last decade.
Wow. Right.
That's how, and so you look at it, and that's what my mind had done when I first came to Arizona, because I'm going, well, this farmland's never going to be anything. It's just a farm. Yeah. That's what the farm is back in Pennsylvania or Iowa or Ohio or any of those places. So as you would watch the growth here, you would really go, this is an incredibly dynamic area. Yeah, and that's the thing that's wonderful for what you doing today with Neighborhood Ventures is the opportunity from an investment perspective are so staggeringly good. Yeah. And people just don't understand. It's the same as teaching somebody how to save money. You also have to know how to invest it. Right. And everyone can do it. It's how you live your life. So are you living to your needs? Or are you living to your wants? And if you're living to your wants, you're probably not going to ever really have a lot to save. If you live to your needs, you'll have money to save, and hopefully that'll give you a quicker way to retire or whatever you want to do from some kind of financial independency.
So you're sitting next to a Grand Canyon University student right now, and he's a full-time student and he works for us full-time, so he's a pretty ambitious guy. But what advice would you give to a
Don't sleep anymore.
What advice would you give to a smart, driven college student? And then what advice would you tell him to ignore?
Ooh.
I think the easiest thing is continue to live your life as you get out of school. Live your life for the first 5 years out of college as if you were still in college. Save every penny you can instead of as you get a job opportunity. The job may be that you'll make $20,000 a year. Most people that make $20,000 a year spend $20,100. They then make $40,000 a year the next year, and they spend $40,100. So no matter how you do this, your job is to figure out how to manage your finances and live your life so that you're not living like a pauper, but that you are going to benefit yourself over what you've already done. And that's really, really important. And the one that you said, what not to believe or not what to do, is there's no instant gratification in this world that we're in. There's no push a button and you become a zillionaire. We read about it all the time. Somebody's either a tech guy or a .com guy or a new guy that created a new app. Well, that's 1 in 10 million. If you happen to be that good, I want to rub your shoulder and stay close to you because that's gonna be wonderful. You can be successful without doing that just by making those little modifications and change. And realize that you have value, but you're going to have to work hard. It's just hard work. There's no other way around it.
Yeah, and that's great advice for my generation, especially. We don't really like hard work that much. So.
Yeah, well,
have you seen that from my generation?
Well,
like,
see a
difference?
Well, I mean, here's my biggest problem with what I watch in the new generation today is, I no sooner do something. I don't care what it happens to be, and because the last 2 years I've spent a lot of time with doctors. The minute I leave the office, I get a survey to ask me how I did. And I go, well, what do you mean? How did you do?
Yeah.
Well, I want to know if I did well. I don't even know you did your job, let alone did well. And you want me to give you like a star on your helmet? Get away from me. You got to earn those things. And so I think the new generation of today is really wanting something that they haven't earned yet. And I don't mean that in a negative way. They haven't put the time in.
And I think it's human nature. I mean, all of us would love to take a shortcut, find the quick way. I'm going to be smarter than everybody else. And
I'm going to follow you when you do that then.
Yeah, right.
I want to be right behind you.
But then reality hits us in the face at some point.
Yeah. Right.
No matter when it does, the sooner the better.
Well, I think the hard part of all of our lives is we don't think that we don't want to have the painful time of life to learn from it. It's the greatest learning experience we're going to have is through the tough parts.
That's right.
So when we're in the valleys of what's going on in our world, if you can stand tall in that, when things are really good, it's euphoric. It's a really positive, very good thing.
When you look at your career or in your life, what's a failure that you've had that set you up for a future success? What comes to mind?
Well, unfortunately, failure is not a word I use in any part of my language. So, and that's an important element, I think, that you have to understand that if you use that language in your head, you then have it in your vocabulary and it becomes part of you. So that's judgmental conversation versus doing something in action. My grandmother was somebody who my grandmother was a sage for me as a child. And her line was, you will never fail at anything you do as long as you know that you can go to path A, B, and C. And so as you
She's pretty pragmatic.
Yeah. Well, her thing was, if path A is not working, go to path B.
Yeah.
And the other thing that she gave me was, if you think you've failed at something or you're causing yourself anxiety because of your expectations of your own, because you're not here to live up to somebody else's expectations. You're only here for yours. So if that's the case, change your expectation because you're the one causing the problem.
Right.
So when you ask the question about failure, I've learned the hardest lessons I've learned were the ones that people would consider to be maybe failure. And I would have told you they were the biggest blessing that I had, which here I am on a full scholarship. I've got rose-colored glasses on. We're poor. I'm in college. I'm going to come out. I don't know what I'm going to be. I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor because I couldn't stand the sight of blood. So I wasn't going that direction. But everything else I could do. And it's because my grandmother said, there isn't anything you can't do. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to be a butterfly catcher, be the best one you can be. And so I work on that on almost everything I work at in my life. So no matter what it is. And I've been involved with kid programs, which I hope that if you want a positive for me, I've been a part of hundreds of kids' lives through kid programs. And I believe that they've walked away with part of my grandmother because of it. And I know that made them more positive about where they were going to go. I don't have much on the failure side because I don't think that way. But I've had certainly big challenges,
Well, that's actually a great answer to the question, right?
Okay.
Is how you look at it. How do you avoid the rose-colored glasses thing? Because I know with your experience, you might have been around people that they don't ever look at reality and say, hey, wait, let's stop what we're doing. This is not going, how do you stay positive without getting naive or being naive?
Well, I think that you learn that through, here's my analogy of that. And again, many of these are given to me by my grandmother. So if it sounds boring to you, I don't.
What's her name, by the way?
Her name was Maggie.
Okay, Maggie's getting this is
a
great
Maggie. This is a Maggie session. Let me tell you.
We need to know her name. Yeah.
No, the reality was she would say something to me. She would say there were a couple of very funny lines. One was, don't ever do anything that you wouldn't want on the front page of the paper. And I can remember her saying that to me when maybe I was 5 or 6 years old. Yeah. And I looked at her and I said, Grandma, I think I've already done a couple of those. I think I've done a couple I don't want on the front page of paper. She said, well, you either got to get better at not getting caught or you're going to have to accept the consequences of what comes your way. So I would tell you it's about accepting consequences for the actions you take and being, honest and upright to do it. It's that quote of, a coward dies 1,000 deaths, a brave man only one. Well, you want to be willing to take on the difficulties of what you've done and stand up, be I'll use the word man, but in today's world, that would probably get me shot someplace.
People.
Yeah, you got to be a them. And since we're going to be a them, you just have to take responsibility for the things you've done. But there's no way that you've done something that can't be repaired or that you can't do better or you can't be more involved in helping be a positive influence. So
yeah, that front page analogy is a great analogy, especially for social media today. because you can.
Yeah, well, they do it every.
Yeah, and
I mean,
can
the
say
things they do to
something-
each other, it will eat your lunch.
You could say something. I mean, we were looking through the comments in your videos earlier and stuff. Like, you could say something and hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people can see it now. That's the power that social media has.
Right.
So you want to be able to say things on there that you'd want everybody to see, because that's basically your business card nowadays.
Yeah, and Goldman Sachs first day there, they said never do anything that if was published on the front page of the Wall Street Journal that would have a problem with. And it same thing that Maggie told you with life, because reputation does matter.
Oh,
reputation matters a lot in business. It matters a lot in our relationships. So I think we're going to we need to come back again for a Maggie 2.2 version 2 and a Bill version 2. The great thing about the Off the Grid podcast is you're here, so we're going to have you come back on here.
He's at the grid
because we're all at the grid. And
I didn't know Bill was a philosopher, so it was good.
He is. He's got and we're going to have you on again.
I love it.
We'll give you a few months break, get you back on and chat again. But this has been great. We just trying to get some nuggets out of each of these, and so I don't want to give too many because we've already got some great things to think about. I know I do. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you very much.